Hi, I'm Casey Bryant with AllOnGeorgia, and I'm sitting down with Brad Hayes, who's the Republican candidate for the Chattooga County Board of Education. Thank you, Brad, for taking the time to talk to us. And first, I'd like to just give you a chance to introduce yourself to everyone, kind of tell us your educational background, where you're from, who you are. Okay. Kind of just introduce yourself.
All right. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me, inviting me. It's good to be able to have this opportunity to speak to the citizens. I am a 24-year veteran of education, and I am the only son of Bobby and Sandra Hayes. We live in the Halls Valley community, and that is the northern part of the county, and it's also where we've been, my family, since 1850. So we've been there 168 years. My sons are the 7th generation in Chattooga County on that farm, and I graduated from West Georgia in Carrollton with a secondary education degree. While teaching at Gordon Central in Gordon County, I went back to graduate school and Berry College, received a master's degree in early childhood education and also a specialist degree in school curriculum administration. And I've been a teacher, been a coach, assistant principal, and really at all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school for 24 years now. And now, currently in my job in education, I have the opportunity to work with college students. So I've been at all levels, kind of doing all things, and I've always really enjoyed working in education.
Okay. When a lot of people think about Brad Hayes, one of the first things that pops in people's minds is Trine Bulldog, 100% T-Town, bleed blue. Mm-hmm. So how did you make the decision to run for the Chattooga County Board of Education?
Okay. I knew that would probably be maybe even the most asked question for me.
Right.
So I've kind of thought about it, definitely prayed about it. And so I guess like you've put it, why is Brad Hayes running for Chattooga County School Board when there is a Trine City School Board? And the answer is really simple. I don't live in Trine. There are qualifications and rules on who can run for the Chattooga County School Board, and I meet those qualifications. If the qualifications to run for a Chattooga County School Board were written as no Trine graduate could ever run, or no person that has ever worked for Trine City Schools can't run, or a person who has children that have graduated from Trine or attend Trine, can't run for the Chattooga County School Board, that would wipe out a lot of past and present educators that are excellent educators in our county. A lot of them have been my mentors, and if I had a few minutes, I'd like to even name a few. I know people know these people. There was a lady that was an English teacher in Chattooga County High School. My mother had her in the 60s, and she's probably one of the best English teachers around, Nell B. Taylor. And she's kind of famous in this area because of the Taylor House. Right. Wonderful lady. I had the opportunity to know her, talk to her before she passed. Before she got her career started at Somerville High School and Chattooga High School, she taught school at Trine. And then also you got a man named Jack Shantlin. He was a University of Georgia Bulldog. He was a Trine High School graduate, and he also coached at Trine, but then later coached at Chattooga. And he coached during those years where there were some big rivals and rivalry. But he's a well-known county coach, person, great family. Bill Kinsey, he was Chattooga High School principal, and then Trine High School hired him to be the superintendent. And that was kind of a consecutive reign. Donnie Hayes was a Trine High School graduate, actually graduated with my father. And he was an administrator in Chattooga County, then elected Chattooga County superintendent. I could name Skipper Stewart, I had his wife at Trine for 3rd grade as my teacher. He was a Trine High School teacher who later was elected Chattooga County School Board, or superintendent. Jug Hayes, Lamar Turner, Lanny Thomas, Ron Williams. He coached me in football. He was a Chattooga High football coach. He come to Trine. I'm glad he coached me. He was my offensive line coach. He went back to Chattooga. So he's kind of been back and forth and served on the board as well in Chattooga County. And then currently, I thought of Jeff Bennett, Lisa Hughes, Lana Mosley, Beth Howard. There's a lot of people that have some type of connection with both school systems. And I feel like I'm not in it for one over the other. I'm for both, but I'm a county resident, and I have reasons now that I want to be a part of the tribe. And, I don't have a thing bad or negative to say about my opponent, but if a policy were in place like what I'm kind of hearing, no trying, the person I'm running against could not even serve as a school board member in Chattooga County because she is a 1968 graduate of Trine High School and I'm a 1986 graduate of Trine High School. So we actually have something in common. Probably I could think of course I have two sons. I care about them more than anyone, and they're both, Trine graduates. But my career and 45 years of my life has been in education. I have put kids first at many different school systems in Georgia because I've worked in education at many different school systems in Georgia. So I'm going to look at the Chattooga County students, teachers, and staff the same way I have any county school or city school that I've worked for as an educator. I've taught school for 10 years and love and care about every student I've ever taught. See a lot of them that still come up to me and thank me for different things. And I thank them for many different things as well because they've made me who I am. But I've worked in Walker County, I've worked in Dade County and Whitfield County, and those school students are my priority. And I'm for them to be successful in school and in life. And so now I want Chattooga County students to be successful in school and in life. And one way that I can do that is to serve as a school board member. And it's something really, I'll be honest with you, but being in education for so long, a goal of mine has always been to maybe serve on the school board. Well, I've only got one option because of where I live. And, it's a great county to be a school board member in, but it's my only option, and that's why I'm running, is to do for Chattooga what I've done maybe for Trine or maybe for all these other school systems that I've worked for. I will be loyal, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work, not just me doing everything, because I've got to work with 4 more board members. We've got to work as a team, work with the superintendent, and then other people in different positions. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
We're just going to go ahead and get this one out of the way. When preparing for this interview, it came to our attention that your teaching certificate had been suspended for a week in 2011. Would you like to use this time to kind of talk about the circumstances surrounding that?
I can, yes, I can. I had been an assistant principal, 3 years in the high school, 5 years in the elementary school in Walker County. And then I was named principal at one of the elementary schools. And I went into that office July of 2008. And so what happened was I was actually driving out west, and we cruised Hawaii for a 2-week vacation when I got the news that I had been named principal. So what I did is, we didn't cut our vacation short, but we come home, and I worked the week of July 4th. But it was usually a time that administrators had off. But I knew my responsibilities and my new job, I had to actually hire an assistant principal. I had to hire a couple other teachers. So I worked that week, 5 days, and had interviews and did everything I needed to do. Well, what happened in that school year and the couple of years to come, my leadership team that I hired, in a sense, kind of turned on me. I had an assistant principal who really kind of wanted my job because, he wanted to be promoted. And I had a school counselor who I had actually just moved her office in the school building to another location, and she didn't like that. And then I had an academic coach who was interested in being the assistant principal, but when I didn't interview her, she got upset with that and she changed schools. So I kind of had three people that was part of my leadership team, I thought, that kind of turned on me. And so what happened was there was a complaint made, and there was kind of an investigation done, and it goes back to 5 days that I worked in July that I wasn't supposed to. I did work, but then those 5 days were not reported. So that's why there were 5 days that they tagged on to my certificate. And it's one of those things which now I see it's called flex time for administrators. When you work, Saturdays or extra hours, you can count those times for other days. So that's what I did on my calendar and my way of keeping record. But then I had those three people that were really part of my leadership team that went after me and attacked me and turned me in for those 5 days that I worked. So, I feel like I really had good intentions at heart, but it kind of turned on me a little bit, and I didn't want to fight it. I didn't want to go into any legal ramifications with the school system I was working for. And then sometimes when you fight a school system, you probably can't ever get a job in another school system because they know you're one that's filed a lawsuit against a school already. So I thought about my options, and I knew what I did was not wrong and it was right, and I had my reasons. I had it in my calendar. But, those people wanted to do something else. They did it, and they were probably surprised I didn't fight it. But I didn't for those reasons.
Thank you for taking the time to explain that. Moving along, what made you decide to run for Board of Education?
Probably several different reasons. I know there's probably 3 hot topics that might be discussed in this interview already. The number one reason probably I'm running is thinking of the school and the students. My background right now where I work is with college and career. And what we do is we give students an early advantage and a jump on getting their career or college started while they're still a high school student. And I know that Chattooga school system does an excellent job with CTAE, with dual enrollment, and all those things. And I'm not running because I think they're doing a horrible job or I'm trying to change what they're doing. I'm just trying to now add to what we're already doing that's very successful, because I've got a lot of connections and people I know in Whitfield County where I work at the College and Career Academy. And so a good partner is GNTC because they have campuses in the area. And so what Whitfield has done is they've partnered with the Whitfield County GNTC campus, and we offer dual enrollment. And then we offer internships and apprenticeships with our students through the local businesses. Well, I know you can drive through Dalton and you see there's a lot more businesses in Dalton than we have in Somerville, Trine and Menlo and Lyerly. But I want to offer or try to get in place something just like that on a smaller basis here in Chattooga County. It might be an academy, not what we know of as the academy now that's in existence. It's more of kind of your alternative or get your credit when you're behind, which is a great thing. But this is more like launching a career where you have businesses working with the students and maybe even offering them jobs. Walker County is just now doing that with Lafayette and Ridgeland, and they're calling it Launch Academy. And so it's my reasoning to run is it's a win-win situation. We help students, but we also help our community, because what we're trying to do, and a goal of mine, is to help students graduate, but then find jobs in this county and stay here and raise their families in Chattooga County. So that's the reason, is my experience in what I do now is what I want to bring to Chattooga County. Probably another reason is the hot topic is, the calendar. And I know you're going to ask me about that.
So you can go right ahead.
So I'll go right on into that. And I kind of want to start off by saying, asking a question. And I ask the question to students, teachers, parents, the community. I could ask you this question and you would have an answer. The question is, what is the number one goal or purpose for education? The number one goal or purpose in a pre-K 12 education is not to save money. I mean, that's not the most important. I mean, it is something we have to unfortunately think about and know, how much money do we have to spend on certain things. But saving money is a goal or purpose, but it's not what's most important. The number one goal or purpose is to encourage and inspire and motivate and teach every student how to be successful in school and in life. And if our goal in education is to save money, and that's what I keep hearing, with going from 5 to 4, you save money. If that's really what's most important, well, we should go to a 3-day school schedule, because we save money with a 4-day, but we'd even save more money if we go to a 3-day. So that shows you, we're not going to do that. We're not looking to do that. And so that shows you we really may not have even done the change or had the change because of the money. But I'll agree, in my research, we have saved money. And as a school board member, I've started a business, I've operated a business even in Chattooga County for 17 years on the side of my educational career. As a business person and as a school board member, saving money is important, and a 4-day school week does that. But personally, I think there's way too much emphasis right now, maybe in this election, on what are we going to do, 5-day or 4-day. And I'd like to share kind of 3 points that I've talked to people particularly about. And one is the 4-day-a-week school schedule has saved our county money, and I like the 4-day schedule because of that reason. But secondly, do I personally think going to a 4-day school week is what made the graduation rate go up? Is it even what caused the student attendance and discipline and test scores to improve? I don't really think that was it, possibly. Yes, we save money with it, but I think the reason that Chattooga County Schools has made major improvements in many areas is because of our students. It's because of our teachers and our staff, our principals, and even our superintendent. It's the people that have done these amazing things that has caused everything to improve and be better. So I don't know if it's so much the emphasis on 4-day or 5-day. If we have in place and we put, our backing and encouragement behind our students and give our teachers what they need, they're going to be successful. And, I think it's kind of funny, Chattooga County School System, we have a success team. And they're not really the success team. It's the students and the teachers that are our success team. And, that's kind of another area, I definitely would like to look at in becoming a school board member, because you got a lot of money, thousands of dollars in salaries. And, I'm not trying to cut anybody, but you can hire more teachers with some of the money that you put toward success teams. But where your real success is your teachers and your students. And they're the ones that have done all of this. And, I'm coming in wanting to praise all the good work that has been done and not trying to tear it down or change it. I just want to be a part of it because it's working. I can sit here and tell you, Chattooga County Schools is doing a lot of great things and good things that Triton City Schools not doing. And I see that. And that's why I want to be a part of, the success. If I have the opportunity, and people will put aside some of the other things that maybe they thought of or have brought up.
Do you define yourself as a fiscal conservative?
I definitely define myself as a conservative. I often use that label, that title, even over I'm a Republican.
Right.
Because, honestly, growing up in Chattooga County, ever since I've been able to vote, I've voted both ways. Growing up in Chattooga County, in the early years, it was hard to ever vote Republican anyway. But being physically conservative, yes, is something that I have always tried to be and to look at, because money does play into a lot of different things, even in school. But if we can save money, we need to save it where we can. But I definitely put students and their interest in what they need first, and try to meet all of those things, and almost kind of be liberal with that. Giving students what they need, giving teachers what they need. Because I remember I was an administrator in Walker County when smart boards come into being. And we brought those smart boards in because we saved a little money, got a few grants, so you can find money. And having grant writers and people that'll help save money and be conservative, you can kind of be liberal then with handing it out. And I tell you, when we installed those smart boards, teachers and students, it was like a pet rally, for the academic and for the technology. So I'm for spending money on students and spending money on teachers. But yes, trying to be very conservative with, what we do spend our money on. Because see, the main thing is too, is I have been, my grandparents, my parents and I'm a county taxpayer, which includes the county school tax, and I'm a taxpayer too, so I want to know where my money's being spent. And as a school board member, I feel like we need to let our community and voters and citizens know more about where we spend our money. Whether it's an hour before school board meetings to kind of have that discussion, or be a little more open with what we're spending our money on, but still follow, of course, all the laws and guidelines of what we can share with the public. But yeah, I'm definitely for being more open with our citizens.
The Chattooga County school system right now, the hot button issue is the 4-day school week. So do you support the 4-day school week, or do you support the 5-day school week?
What I did is I knew that was going to be a question even throughout the campaign. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to talk to people and get their opinion, because I would not want to make the sole decision between that. So when I talk to students, and I try to talk to elementary, middle, and high school students in the county already. Some I attend church with, some I see at Walmart or events. And I ask them, and I won't say every, but the majority of students are just like I would be if I were a student. Yes, 4 days. So they're for that, for the most part. Adults, parents, I've talked to them, and the majority, I feel like it's kind of divided between, there's parents in this county who don't have a problem with daycare, or they don't have a problem with supervision of some of their younger kids because they work. And they're for 4-day, most parents that I've talked to. But then I do have a couple of adults, and I do realize, because I've asked them, are you a parent of a Chattooga County student? And they say yes, but they're the ones who are a little unsafe and unsure, because on Monday in Chattooga County, they're working, and they know that if their child's in school, that's the safest place to be, is in school. But they're home alone, possibly. Some of those parents are a little different. They'd like to see the old traditional 5-day brought back. And I don't know if it's a good enough reason, but what I found out is just because of safety and concern. They want something they feel safe and secure with, because it's what they did when they were in school, just like me. 4 days when I was in school, we'd never thought of it. So yeah, it's traditional. And I think for that reason, and the safety, and also I think about this too. Some students get 2 good meals It's breakfast and lunch because they go to school. If you're on a 4-day calendar, those students get 4 days of 2 good meals. But if you're on a 5-day, those students get 2 good meals 5 days a week. And, I've seen that in schools where I've worked before, where on Friday we hand out food because churches and things give, because they need something to eat over the weekend. Well, in Chattooga County, we got a 3-day weekend. So some families and parents have told me they hurt and they suffer. And it's just real. It's just part of it. It's even in Chattooga County. And so all of those things considered, I could go either way. But I feel like going into this election and being elected on this school board, we're going to have to stick to 4 days because I can't change it. The 5 members of the board cannot change anything that's already in place right now, just like the calendar. It's already in place. So when we're elected, we're going to have to know we got to go with 4 days. But after 1 year, it can be changed. And so what I feel like I'm going to be able to do is, right now I feel like I'm an outsider. I get little bits of information from people, or if I ask for some data, sometimes I don't feel like I get everything because I'm an outsider. But when I become an insider and I'm on that school board and I know a lot more than I can even find out now, I may change my mind and I may support, a 5-day. But it's kind of like I said earlier, if we're really in this to save money, we ought to go to 3 days. I mean, it's just a lot to consider. And I really think it's almost blown out of proportion a little bit. There's more important things than just choosing 4 or 5. But I know right now we're going to have to go with 4 days. But I am thinking as an insider on the school board, there could be reasons we could change. And because I think of this too, we've had it for several years. You could probably tell me how many. I forget now.
I think we're on our 9th year. Right?
9th year. And I do remember, because I go back to the newspapers at sometimes at the probate office, and I look at when all this stuff took place. It was kind of presented as a temporary thing. So 9 years is not maybe temporary. Yeah. But it can change, and it's very possible that it will, but it's just not going to be able to be right now because it's really almost out of our hands, the new members that are going to be possibly elected.
Right. Brad, have you thought about what the process would look like and what steps y'all would take if they were to vote to return to the 5-day, as far as easing the students back into it, the length of the process, and also where would the additional funding come from?
Right.
Because we are
Right.
saving money, but all that saved money wouldn't equate into the extra day.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be a lot of resources that would need to be addressed.
Right.
So have you thought about that process?
Yeah, I really think as far as a time period, I think it would take about the same amount of time for when we put it in as if we reinstated. And I don't know if I can really tell you how long it took for people to get used to being 5 and going to 4. I honestly, to sit here and be honest with you as a citizen, I am a little surprised it's lasted 9 years. Because I know when it happened, I didn't know if it would last. But then at that same time, I remember as I've researched, it was really kind of presented as a temporary thing. So I thought, well, a couple of years to get money saved, because there's a lot of fuel costs you can save, there's electricity, and then of course graduation rates and all this other test scores. But it's like I said earlier, I think a lot of that may not have been the changing from 5 to 4. It was just the morale and what the students and teachers did. But I think the time period would be about the same. And yes, if you go back to 5, there's going to be not as much savings. And so because of that may be the very reason I'm sitting on that school board when it comes a year later not to vote for it, because even though it's not the number one goal, that money saved might be what's hurting teachers and students, because I hate to have anybody lose their job. And the main thing is, you know, you do look at other people, you've got some huge salaries in certain places right now that could shift to hiring teachers. Or it may just be someone's role in the county might have to change. Because, you know, there's people that are very successful in what they do. They could be successful, you know, doing something else in the school system. So there's going to be so many things that's going to come out, you know, once you're in a position where you are a school board member. And I keep saying an outsider and insider, but it could be done. I believe as a school board, we could come up with, you know, reasons for going back to 5 or whether we're staying as 4. But up front, we've got to be honest with the parents and the students and the community on why we're doing either one. We got to be open, more open, and communication is vital. And that's one of the reasons too that I want to run is to be more hands-on, more visual, and able to talk and get opinions from our citizens, because it does matter. And then it comes down to the 5 of us making a decision, we know. And I may be in the minority when it comes to votes like calendar.
Right. If Chattooga County schools were to go back to a 5-day week, do you see any negative impacts on the school system or the community or the taxpayers? I mean, do you think it would definitely result in a property tax increase to find the additional funding?
Ooh, boy, that's a touchy situation, because, you know, I guess one thing I've often thought about too is we've gone and been doing a 4-day for 9 years. It's worked, it's a good thing, but you know, it's not a fad.
Right.
It's like you don't see other school systems in Georgia just racing to do what we're doing. You know, if it was really something extremely great, like with money, test scores, graduate, I think other school systems would be doing it too. Now, I don't know if I know the answer to that. You know, I know in Colorado they're doing it, in other states, but you know, for 9 years, everybody read in the paper in other counties in Georgia about what Chattooga was doing. 4 days. And you know, in some situation, I think we got laughed at a little bit, or that's crazy. But then we showed them, you know, that there's been success from it, but it's just not something everybody's doing. But you know, they don't have to. We can be different. But I think that part of that is, you know, you've got to decide what you're going to put the time and the effort to, and is it going to be students? And I think the student interest has got to be first. Now, tell me again the question. I think
were there any overall negative impacts that you could foresee, whether it be in the schools themselves, the community, the taxpayers? What could be the negative ramifications going back to a 5-day? You know, because a lot of these students, it's been in place for 9 years, so your ninth graders and below have never been to school 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So the adjustment for them would be pretty significant. Right. After coming off of a large property tax increase last year, the burden for the taxpayers themselves could potentially be significant to make up the additional cost for the 5-day school week. Yeah. So do you see any negative impacts, and how would you kind of try to head them off?
Yeah, there would be a negative impact. And I think really what's not negative is the fact that you've got a sole commissioner that can always say, you know, there's not going to be any tax increases or the millage rate's going to be cut. Now that commissioner side of it, he can't always say that. He doesn't always say that. But then on the school side, the superintendent and the school board, you know, they can say they're not going to raise the millage rate as well. And you're right, it hasn't been raised, I don't believe, in the last several years. So if the millage rate has to be raised, it's probably going to be all going back to the fact that that's why it's raised, because we went back to a 5-day. But I think that's one of those things which I would have to see as an insider sitting on the school board to see it may be worth not going back to 5 because we've had so much great success with not raising the millage rate or the taxes.
Right. But
I don't know if that's something that we can really everyone control. You know, the taxes may still have to go up. It may not be necessarily the school, it may be the commissioner. But I do kind of see a little bit of, who's to blame, who's going to be put in those positions. And right now, I kind of look at a situation too. We have a sole commissioner. It's one person, makes a lot of decisions. And the talk is, we need to go to a 3 or a 5-member board so the board can make a decision. And so right now in the school system, it's just like in the cities, you do have a board or a council. It's more than one person that makes or should make those decisions, like going to 4 or back to 5. And it doesn't need to fall on just one person. So really, it doesn't need to fall on just our superintendent, And it's kind of ironic because, years ago, the superintendent was in a situation just like the board. He or she was elected by the people. And I don't know that that's not a bad thing. If I'm going into the school board position, I would much rather know I was elected by the majority of the people of the county. And that's why I got that job. And because, they obviously stand behind me, and I have to listen to a lot of those, and what they want. And tax increases and millage rates are part of it. Or you won't get reelected. But then, you got a sole commissioner that feels the same way. He may not get reelected if he raises taxes. But right now we do have our superintendent who's not so much elected by the people, but if he knew he could be elected by the people, he'd probably feel a lot better too, because he's got that support. So there's going to be some blame, but I can't see anything that would hurt or devastate the students that we would need to go back to 5 days if that were to be what would happen, teachers or students.
How familiar are you with the current Chattooga County school system budget?
Well, I'm familiar enough with it just because it's public record.
Right.
And when you go on and you look at the Chattooga County School Board salaries, there's a lot of heavy ones, high. And then there's some, that's not so high, but yet they do such a wonderful job as being part of the success team in the county. Maybe a custodian or a cafeteria worker, bus driver, or elementary teacher. It could be a high school principal. So, but it's that way in all counties. It seems like every time there's a school board giving a contract extension, is sometimes a bump up in salary. And it happens in neighboring counties too. And it's kind of amazing that it's 3 or 4 years out. A lot can change, and I think a school board needs to see from year to year, or maybe 1 year out, where our money's being spent before we jump and bite off way too much. And it goes too in building and facilities. Now I have to praise the current school board because they're who's part of giving Lyerly a new gymnasium, and I hope Menlo gets one because they deserve one too. But that's a lot of money. And then you've got these voters and the citizens who say, okay, is there loaning money involved? Is there debt involved? Is there, what's involved in the future for the county school system? And I think we don't need to keep biting off more than we can pay for and handle. And
do you see the relevance of the success team? Do you know what they do? Do you feel like the correlation between the 20 categories that the test scores did go up in may correlate to the job that they're doing, or do you think that would be something that you would look at as a way to save money?
I think I'm kind of leaning toward we might could save money, because those people that are in those positions, they're qualified, because I know they're former principals, assistant principals, instructional coaches, curriculum instructors, maybe teachers, and they can do what needs to be done because they've done it. They've been a classroom teacher. Where the rubber meets the road is in a classroom. And it's teachers and students having that working professional relationship, and you having a successful teacher come in and be able to do the job and hopefully prepare and get students ready even for a standardized test. But at the same time, you're teaching them and getting them ready for life too, life skills. And sometimes that's easier to do than getting them ready for a standardized test. But I think the success is still, like I said earlier, is in the teachers and the students. And so when there comes a time that we may need more teachers to make classrooms smaller, we need to hire more teachers and give a smaller ratio of teacher-student ratio, because that sometimes gives students success because there's a smaller number of students in the room. Or maybe have co-teaching, where you've got two adults that are educators in a classroom to instruct. So, you know, I think they've got to be patted on the back. The bad thing is you've got people already on this success team that I don't want to, you know, I'm not going to strip them of their job because they're making a salary, and it's nothing I had a part in. It's what people before me did and created. But you got to look at what's best for students, and I think I am definitely pro student and pro teacher. I always tried to be that way as an administrator, and I really need to be that way as a school board member. But as a school board member, you also have to think about the community too.
What experience do you have with large, complex public budgets? You know, what would be your process at determining if this is a good budget for the students and is this a good budget for the taxpayers?
Okay. Well, it was 1998. I was teaching in Gordon County, and I was an assistant baseball coach. And so it was the head baseball coach and two of his brothers approached me and wanted to know if I would be willing to go in business with them, and it'd be a sanitation business. And I said, well, sure, but Gordon County is just booming with BFI and, you know, other sanitation business. Oh, no, we're talking about where you were raised. And I said, oh, Chattooga County. They said, yes. And I said, well, you know, we don't have a landfill anymore. I said, you know, I remember years ago, my grandfather was hired by Harry Powell to be the bulldozer operator over at Penn Bridge Road, to be that landfill operator. But we don't have a landfill anymore. It's going to be a cost because we have to take our garbage from Chattooga to another county. And that was a cost we had to pay in Walker or Catoosa. So we started it, and I was in sales. Some people have said if I didn't go into education, I might be a good salesperson. So I helped those three brothers, and I felt a little obligated because their fourth brother was the superintendent of Gordon County Schools, so he was my boss. But we started the business in '98 here, and we grew into a tri-county sanitation business. We picked up garbage 6 days a week for Chattooga, Walker, and Catoosa. And we stayed in the business for 17 years. And I was pretty much just the manager, and I was over sales. And so money was definitely involved, especially at the beginning, because I was in it from building the company up. And then I stayed in it for 17 years and still teaching, going to graduate school, having two sons, blah, 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 you know. But it's still going. It's still successful. H&R Sanitation. It's Hayes and Robbins Sanitation Incorporated. And it's still being operated out of Gordon County, the home office. And they're still picking up, because I see the cans on the roadside in Chattooga, Walker, and Catoosa. And so I've had that experience with money with a business, starting it from the ground up and keeping it going successfully. And the other thing would be as a principal, and especially a principal of a Title I school, I was over, of course, the budget. And I'm not going to name any names, but I know when I walked into that position as principal, the school system has so many different accounts. But we do have one that I called savings account, because I think about homes and family. It wasn't really called savings, but it was one where you could kind of spend, I think there was 10 cents in that account when I went into the principal's position. And I'd been the assistant principal at that same school for 5 years. I didn't realize, because I wasn't a part of that budget as much then, but I didn't realize we were almost broke with that. So for the 3 years I was principal, we built that up, and in that savings account, there was over $10,000. And what I did as a principal was I would call in my department heads, media, physical education, technology, the people I mentioned earlier, my assistant principal, my counselor, and my academic coach, because they were part of the leadership team. And we worked together on a budget. And I think we did a pretty good job of a small elementary school. And so I think that's another experience that I've had, being in education and being in administration and even in business. I've been able to work with money, hiring and firing, and budgets.
It should be the goal of all government bodies to operate as fiscally and as efficiently as possible. In what ways can the Board of Education become more efficient in its operation?
I wish the school system could be run kind of like what we always remembered as younger children, the interstate system. And I say that because when I was young, we'd go vacation in Florida. And, every now and then you'd see, traffic on the interstate because they were doing construction. But, back in the good old days, construction on I-75 would end for several months during a year. You wouldn't see it anymore. But now, I don't think we can ever drive I-75 and not see construction. It's just a part of life. And I think that's kind of how some people view the school system. We build a gym. We do remodeling. We build a new school. But there's sometimes times to where that can stop and you don't have that expense. But it's getting harder and harder to find that stopping point in your term, maybe as a school board member, or really just even in years. It's when do you stop and we don't have to build anything new anymore. And I'm gonna praise Chattooga County school system, because when you drive out there to that grounds of Chattooga High School, it's beautiful. And I see that, and I say that there's not going to have to be a lot more work done in the next couple of years. It's there if we just take care of it. And that's part of teaching students how to take care of it in the community. Lyerly, hopefully Menlo. We're getting things built, and maybe there can be an easing off point. And I think the citizens and the taxpayers would love to hear that and see that. Not so much money being spent or so much debt increasing. But we got to be open. We got to let them know, what we are spending, and keep them involved a little bit more than maybe the current board has.
What, in your opinion, has the current Board of Education done well over the last 4 years?
Well, I guess I don't definitely call names of anybody, but I can first of all think of some things Maybe you're going to ask that, what they haven't done.
Yes, that's my next question.
Okay, well, I'm jumping. I'm thinking of that first.
Right.
Because I want to end with some positives.
Well, however you want to answer, feel free.
It's kind of like a little something I mentioned a while ago, and I've done a little bit of research on. I know Chuck Huffstetler is the state senator for our neighboring county in Floyd, 53rd district, I believe.
He also has some in Chattooga.
Okay, in some of Chattooga. He was a co-sponsor of the bill in the 2017-18 legislature that tried to bring back school superintendents being elected. But it passed in the state Senate, but I think it failed in the state House. And I'm not sure it ever came up again in this year. But the current school board, I would like to see them be a little bit more involved, maybe outspoken and visible because of who they are and that they are elected officials. And I'm not putting any blame or praise on the superintendent because he's not an elected official. But I kind of think if he were again, some of those things might change with his outlook too, because he would kind of be like the school board, well, I've got to get the majority of the people behind me to vote for me if I'm reelected. And so I think we have that burden that sometimes all the superintendents in Georgia don't have now. So I think stepping up a little bit more, and you hear it out in the community, what's that board member said lately? What are they doing? What do they think? And, I've been in other county school systems and I've attended board meetings, some because I had to, because I was an administrator. And it's different. There's county school boards that hold their meetings and they actually invite for an hour before the meeting sometimes an open mic where citizens can speak in orderly and in fashion. I'd like to see that come from the current school board. I guess that's not a praise. That's something maybe we could change, but
Well, that was the next.
Yeah,
How
really
would you
good.
change that? So.
Okay. But going back to a couple of praises, the current school board, they've been in office long enough that most of them have been a part of some of the things we're seeing that have been built, and facilities and the grounds. And I have nothing but praise for them. And it's like Menlo. I've been over there for many years playing basketball and rec leagues and going throughout the school building itself with academic bowl with my own children. And they need some things too, just like, Lyerly's been able to see. And, so there's a lot of good things, that we gotta say this current school board has put in place. But then of course you've always got naysayers that's out there, and some of them are registered voters. Of course, some of them may not be. And the only way they can really make their voice known is to be a registered voter and vote, which kind of gets us into the other thing that's disappointing is so low percentage of voters. And I hope we can have a larger percent in November. But, I think it's seeing what they're building and putting in place. As long as it's there for the students and helping them, there's nothing wrong with that.
What do you believe or think that the biggest challenges that the next school board, the next one says, I'm starting over, I got a little tongue-tied, sorry. What do you believe will be the biggest challenges facing the Chattooga County Board of Education over the next 4 years?
Probably, one thing I hope's not a problem that I would like to see maybe even changed, and you may be able to tell me how it's changed because there's so many things that requires the state legislature. There's also some things that requires just like a referendum on a ballot and the citizens get to change it. But I really feel like it would be best if the school board was nonpartisan. Because I know in teaching, my 10 years of teaching American government, I always had to be bipartisan, teaching. I couldn't let them, I wouldn't tell them any way in which I would lean, And so here we are, 5 members sitting at the higher point of an education system where you got a lot of students watching you or knowing what you're doing. And you got to say, I'm a Democrat or Republican. I don't really understand why we have to. So I don't know if that's a possible close change that other citizens and the media and other people are thinking, we might want to approach that. I know we're approaching, whether to have a 3 or 5 member board of commissioners and whether or not, maybe should the school superintendent be elected. So the third one, I guess, is something like that, is nonpartisan for school board. And I hope that's in the future for the next 4 years, is maybe changing that. Because I think there's talk of a possible election board coming in the county too. So, there's just different things political that might be changing in the next 4 years. But I don't really think we're going to have to be bickering or deciding and arguing over, what kind of big facility is going to have to go up again, other than maybe Menlo getting a gym. But, there's just I think there needs to be some emphasis put on more student-oriented things, which gives them more success, which kind of leads me back into the career focus. And because it's going to cost some money, it's going to take some time to put into place, more of what we're already doing that's very successful. Because we got state winners and finalists going in welding and all kinds of things. And, we've got so many different opportunities for the students to do these career paths, but we can always add more and, and give them more opportunity. And I would love it for it to be the local business. But, we don't have that many, but we do have Best, we do have Mohawk and Mount Vernon. And then we got the healthcare, we got clinics, we've got a nursing home. There's just so many different things. Automotives, we need a small engine. I mean, we got a lot we could still do.
How familiar are you, Brad, with the current school schedule as far as like what time school day starts, what time it ends, how many days a student is in school, and the ever popular seat time at Chattooga County schools? Yeah,
I know from being an administrator, and in fact, even being from a teacher point of view, when I was teaching, we had a more of a traditional smaller amount of time in class, which is your typical 45 to 55 minutes. And you'd run through that where you've got 7 periods a day. But then, going into the block schedules, more like high school, there's a variety of choices there. But, it's got to the point where your class periods are definitely longer, especially for your English and your math, just because there's so much material to be covered. It's what's on standardized tests. And so I feel like we still need to gear our class schedules toward giving them enough time in those critical areas where they're tested. But I'm being an old social studies teacher, I think it's very important to teach them the history and the economics, how to balance a checkbook, the small stuff. Even like what we do at the College and Career Academy, we have a class that helps them with the balance in the checkbook, and it's more of our academy, which like we have Chattooga Academy here, but it's also how to conduct an interview, how to write a resume, how to sit in front of someone and interview and get the job.
Something more along the life skills.
Yes, I think life skills. We definitely, what we already teaching them and how we do it, but maybe to do more of that, because it's something that is kind of getting them ready for what's to come, but it's also helping them be successful and feel successful.
Since announcing your candidacy, how many board meetings have you attended, or school functions or games, and do you feel like as a board member that those are events that are important to attend?
Yes, one of the reasons I'm running also, and I don't think I had mentioned it, is attending more school functions, more board meetings by not being a board member. I mean, anything that's going on with Chattooga students is the fact that both of my sons are out of school. They really moved out of the house. I was, as a parent, so busy with their school and their sports, and I don't have that anymore. And also, I can retire in 6 years, and I'll only be 56, so I can't draw Social Security. And so all I've been doing in my life is education. So another reason I'm running is I've got more time now, and that's why I'm running now, is I've got more time now to attend and go to these functions. And also, what am I good at? What can I do when I do retire, and what else am I going to do, and what would I enjoy doing? And that would be still in education. So serving as a school board member allows me to still do something that I know very well, that I enjoy, that I feel like I can be productive. And then, yes, it will give me an opportunity to yet still be around educators, which includes students. And so going to those events is so critical and so important, because I had to do it, and I say I had to, but it became a part of where I didn't mind to do it, and I enjoyed it because of all the students noticing that I was there as a teacher or an administrator at their events in Gordon County or Floyd County or Walker, where I worked. And so I would do no different in Chattooga County, where I worked, as to show my support and my loyalty to them by attending these things because they notice.
So to clarify, have you attended anything that has been related to Chattooga County Schools since you announced your candidacy?
Since I've announced my candidacy, I have not attended a school board meeting. This Thursday, I will plan on attending the evening budget meeting. And then now that school's back in session, the third Thursday I've got on my calendar for school board meetings is to attend. But I can't think, since I'm declaring my candidacy, other than, well, I can't even say sporting events because I don't think now there's Chattooga trying in anything. So, they don't play each other in any sports anymore.
Technology is a big issue these days, and what do you think about or know about the technology that's in the current school system? And do you see improvements that need to be made, and what would you do to make those improvements?
I think the improvements that need to be made is kind of similar to what we're seeing happening at the Career Academy in Whitfield County. It is technology that's student-led. We have a group that's in a classroom, IT, technology, but they also meet after school hours because they're more or less like a club. And they're our cyber patriots. And so what they do is they come up with these things technology-wise, and they have actually been invited to present to the local school board in Whitfield County what they do, what they create. And so club-related, in-school hours, I think anything we can give to the students to be more involved in technology, they enjoy that. And I tell you, the start of me thinking about that is something that's called robotics. We have a club, robotics, but we have a class that's a career pathway that's mechatronics. And so that's two areas that could be something that could grow even more because it's technology in Chattooga County, because there is competition and there's things that students can participate in. And it's actually, you can win district and win state in the robotics competitions. And a lot of it at the region level is hosted in Dalton, and then they usually travel to South Georgia. So having that and offering that, I just foresee any opportunity we can offer more to students to keep them busy, and it's amazing what they can create with these robots, that I see. And so, it takes, for instance, like the teacher that teaches our IT class. I have set her up with a brand new teacher that's been hired at Lafayette High School in Walker County that I attend church with, because she doesn't know what to do. She's just kind of clueless. She's the only teacher there that's doing what she's got to do. And so there's some networking that they're doing together going on. And, I think that's a good step for particularly those two individuals and for those students that are going to be involved. And there's things that Chattooga's doing and that they have been doing that they too can network and share. But then there's also to take in things too, some things we can add. That's kind of part of what I would like to do, is bring in even other suggestions.
How would you evaluate the performance of the current school board? And you can choose a letter grade, you can choose however you would evaluate the current performance of the school board.
Current school board. Well, probably when people are asked that, or they are put on the spot to do that, they probably would do it individual, but wouldn't dare want to do that. But I think they got to work together as a team. So as one whole group, probably a B plus or a C minus.
What about for Superintendent Linderman?
Boy, he's a go-getter, and I like him. He's the type of person, because of, well, it's kind of political reasons, and I won't mention it, but I know there's a particular two presidents that he worked for in his military career. One was a Democrat, one was a Republican. So it's really not a political thing. And I have always, you know, and I think y'all may have interviewed him, but someone did an interview kind of with his years of working for 2 presidents. That was the most interesting thing, and I love that. And I even thought of more things that I would like to personally sit down and just ask him and talk to him about. And, you know, approachable, I don't know, you know, how approachable I could be now since I'm the outsider, but I don't have a thing against him, and I wouldn't mind going tomorrow and sitting down in his office and talking about, you know, Jimmy Carter or Ronald Reagan and all the great things he did as a veteran. So he's done a lot. He's a great leader. But, you know, I think the school board kind of could step up a little bit more because they are the elected voice of the people. And, you know, I think we just need to kind of have a little more involvement to be seen and heard coming from the school board. But for him, I would say maybe, you know, a B+ or an A- for our current superintendent.
What are your goals, which you've mentioned a lot of them, as a school board member? What are your non-negotiables? These are the things that you want to see accomplished.
Well, there again, I don't know if, I probably should say when I'm elected, but, you know, if I'm elected, because if I am, I am. If I'm not, I'm not. But I don't know that I can set a time frame on how long either I'd like to be a school board member, because I'm not one that's dead set against term limits. You know, at the federal government, which includes the Supreme Court, state, and then even locally. You know, there comes a point in time, probably not to really put anybody down, but I guess I'm kind of realizing that myself. You know, I'm going to be 50 in October, so I'm not a spring chicken anymore. But I think kind of a qualification is right now I'm still in education, and I'm kind of up to speed on the current laws and policies and items. And, you know, perhaps the person I'm running against, yeah, is an educator too, but the time they've been out has been several years. Education changes a lot. And so I think right now is the time where I believe I could give the best because of my qualifications and experience. But there'll come a time, 2 terms from now, 3 terms from now, I'm looked at as being an old fogey, and I need to be voted out. So it's just life. I think we all just meet our peak, and I hope I realize it myself when I meet that peak that I need to get out before, you know, I'm voted out.
In the community, because I'm out in the community a lot, there's been a lot of talk about the local Republican Party having the intention of getting rid of Mr. Linderman and getting 3 people on the board, 4 people on the board to be able to vote him out. Is that your intention?
No. It's like I say, that I can think of personal, you know, that kind of bothers me because I have heard that rumor.
Right.
And I thought to myself, what's the best way to get the truth out about how I'm not in that situation? And I guess by you inviting me here and doing what the 2 of you are doing is going to, in a way, help me get my message out. Because I hope sitting down with you tonight has helped not only my image, because I've really been honest with you on a lot of things tonight. And it's just the truth, and it's just me being honest. And so I feel like that's the best way to be, is just be honest and upfront with everybody and anything. And I don't see the getting rid of Mr. Linderman. I mean, you know, I do, to my face, he's never said or done anything to me that would make me even think a negative thought. Now, have I heard things? Yes. But, you know, there's come a time and a place in my career where it's gotten back to me, or I finally heard from somebody said something pretty bad about me. And you have to have tough skin. And I think Mr. Linderman's got tough skin. But, you know, I feel like I do too because of my job and my past. But personally and professionally, I don't have a problem with our superintendent, but, you know, there are some things I wish I could just sit down and talk to him about and be honest with him if he asks my opinion. Maybe even ask me, what have you heard, Brad? What's kind of the negative you're hearing? If he would be willing to listen and hear what I have to say, it's not that I name who said it, but I just tell him, you know. But I don't know if a conversation like that could take place. I mean, for me, I've been in that situation. That's something hard to take, is criticism. And, you know, it fires me up when I hear people said something negative or bad about me. But, you know, he lives his life the way he chooses. I live my life the way I choose. And we just both go about it because we're here for the students, we're here for the teachers, and I hope our paths will cross, finally.
Right.
And me as a school board member and him as our superintendent.
As a school board member, you're going to be responsible for hiring, firing. You will vote on every teacher that has their position. You'll vote on every teacher that changes. You'll vote on substitute teachers, bus drivers. You will vote on the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
What criteria are you going to use to decide who's hired, who's fired? I mean, as an educator yourself, is it going to be test scores and results? I mean, what are you going to, for the teachers out there watching, what are you going to use to evaluate their performance?
Yeah. Well, you know, that's a good point because it's kind of recently come up in other local government situations. You know, you have similar to a school board and a superintendent. You have a town or city council and a mayor. You know, well, is it the mayor that does the hiring and firing, or is it this council? And so I think that's been addressed recently, and so I think we've got an answer to that, and it does perhaps fall on the council, and it does fall on the school board. But what I would like to do, just because I'm an old teacher and an old administrator, is to be able to be more visible and go into schools and not feel like, you know, they don't want me in there, I don't have any business in there, because I'm so used to going in classrooms, walking hallways, being with students, being with teachers, and I really hope that doesn't have to change just because I'm a school board member. But you know, I think back, when I was in school, I don't know that I remember seeing too many school board members. There were several, because back when I was in school, there was school board members that were big executives at the Regal Textile Mill, and they would come to the school. And, you know, being at those events you talked about. Yes, I want to be at the basketball games and the football games. And so, you know, I think I want to do those kind of things and get to know students, get to know teachers, get to know administrators, and get to know situations. And that way I would feel better about my vote. And so as a school board member though, if I can't do all that, and I know I can't, I've got to rely on, okay, superintendent, what's your recommendation? And I feel like the board can take recommendations from the superintendent, but also what I want to know for sure is that the superintendent's doing the same thing. He's asking the principal, what's your recommendation? Because see, the principal's the one that's the building administrator. They're seeing and knowing how they do, they're evaluating them, they're observing them on TEKS. And so the worst thing to happen, and unfortunately it's happened to me in my career, is for people to assume things and go on things and vote a certain way when they don't really know the whole truth.
Right.
And, you know, people can lose their jobs and lose things over people making rash decisions when they don't know the whole facts. And so as a school board member, I know we got to make quick decisions, we got to know things, but I want to know things before I vote, especially on terminating a bus driver, a teacher, substitute administrator, superintendent. I've got to know, because it's like I tell students today in my job, there's always two sides to every story.
Brad, we're going to conclude our interview with one final question, and that is, why should people vote for you?
I would appreciate the support and the vote from every registered voter in Chattooga County on November the 6th. And I hope it's because you're going early to vote in the election, or you're going on election day, because you've taken the time to find out who I am. Who is Brad Hayes? What does he believe in? What does his life and his past reveal? Because I've often said to a lot of people in life, we all preach a sermon or we teach a lesson every day of our life, and we're all writing a book. And so if you have questions or you have concerns, the best thing to do is come to me and ask me, and maybe not ask someone else or talk about the situation, but just come to me and feel like you can. It's like I say as an administrator, I have an open door policy. And so as a school board candidate, I have an open door policy that you can reach me at my home, my phone, email, Facebook, and I really want you to get to know me, and I hope by knowing me and knowing my background, my integrity, my morale, and my morals, that I can be what Chattooga County needs. And I would appreciate your support and your vote on election day, and then from that point on, we'll work together for the betterment of the students and the teachers.
Again, this is Casey Bryant with AllOnGeorgia, and we just want to thank Brad Hayes for taking the time out of his schedule to talk to us and fill us in a little bit on why he's running for school board.
Thank you.